instead of us trying to make something, use what God has given us. The material is his, the lives, the people, the gifts, the talents, and all we need to do is leverage what he's given us, and we'll see what it is he's manifesting in that season.
Shav is a nothingness, but it's a nothingness that is something. So this nothingness is you're creating within yourself an emptiness by taking false reports in. And it's actually kind of talking about that you've silenced God. What you're trying to do is, to me, is bend the laws of reality. And I remember when my son was really young and we walked in the woods and there was I think a Snickers wrapper. And I told him, put that in the trash. And he said, well, I didn't put it there. And I said, tikkun olam. Well, by that time, he knew what that means. And it's reparation or restoration of the world. And I told him, I said, by taking one piece of trash, as little as that event is, you've made the world a better place. Mm-hmm. You've made something that was bad and revert it to good. So I think that if we can understand what it means to bless those that curse us, to respect those who despitefully use us, you're bending your own laws of reality. It is quantum mechanics. You're creating a new reality for yourself. And not only that, if you think, there was one day, this was a few years ago, it's really when I started kind of doing an inventory on myself, like you were saying, trying to get closer to the Lord. And I got upset about something at work. And I realized, like, it wasn't big. I wasn't mad. It wasn't cussing mad or anything like that. Just one of those things that kind of bugged me. But because it was during a moment in time where I was taking inventory of myself, continuing, I realized I'd been going on and on over this big nothing for over an hour in my mind as I was doing other things. Mm. So for that whole hour, I'm just rehearsing. Someone should have put the pencil right here, and instead they put it over there. That's about the equivalence of the thing. I mean, it was nothing. And it was just the idea that someone would put that over there when I clearly told them that pencil goes right here, you know. But I rehearsed it, and then because I was trying to deal with myself, once the rule comes, sin gains power. So the fact that I didn't want to do this now, because I was reading about it in Torah, I was reading about it in the Talmud, now it became harder to overcome. And so that same situation visited me several times that day, and all through the week during this time, I was like over a 1 second infraction that didn't cost anything. Nobody got hurt. Nobody lost any money over that. And I realized that's the way my mind works. I started realizing that. I'm a troubleshooter by nature. I look for what's wrong so I can fix it. And if I can't fix it, I want to burn the whole thing down. And so, but I realized, I was like, I've got to fix this. I've got to fix this, because what happens is before someone says a word to me, I've already got an attitude. So all you got to do is say a little bit and we got a bigger problem, you know, because I've already got an attitude. But I started realizing how much I rehearsed the negative. And at that moment, I started trying on rehearsing the positive. And I don't think it's something that I'll master, but my life now compared to then, it's not even close to being the same. You literally change your reality. And it takes time, though, and I think that's one of the other issues people have. If we can't do it in 5 minutes, if you can't get it in a pill or a self-help, you know, a 15-minute self-help video. And the problem is these are disciplines like diet or exercise or a mortgage, you know. These are things that take time that you have to work on for a long time. But it's worth it. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking that reminds me of something that Rob Shaul.
Rob Shaul.
Saying, you know,
Apostle Paul.
Yes, he tells us, you know, to think on these things, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are, you know, this list of positive things to focus our minds on. And ultimately that practice is exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And
you start realizing how much of a psychological book this is.
Right.
Because so there's a Jewish teaching, there's 3 garments of the soul: thought, action, and speech. And these are the 3 main, these are really, I mean, we can move to point A to B, but within the Lord, this isn't Moshe, there's not a mountain we can climb. But even if it was, it's under action. I mean, we can get there. These are the only 3 things that we can do in our service to the Lord. And they're also the only 3 things that we can really sanctify, but that are difficult. Your thoughts, which is a huge part of it. So the psychology of all this, everything we're talking about doing, you're doing internally, which is if you change your thoughts, your speech is going to change. And that's the lesson we get with that. Change your thoughts, your speech will change. Change your speech, your actions will change. So you're kinder to people. And I know me and Elaine, we were we'd moved to Dallas, and she was upset. She didn't have any friends. She's like, you need to find me some friends. And she quoted an old preacher that we knew, and he says it's the husband's job to find friends. And so she was starting to get depressed. She was all alone, no one to talk to. And I started praying about it, and I started thinking about it. But ultimately, we got a lot of friends now, and they're good friends. And I know they're good friends because they don't leave when we're done. Like we do Torah story study, they hang out for several hours afterwards. We did the tech rehearsal. I think y'all were here till 10 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's how I know that I have good friends. But the thing is, all of that started when I started changing my thinking. Mm-hmm. And because then, to what you were saying earlier, now I can look at someone else and I can see them. You can hear what they're saying, you can connect with them. And then I think instantly, or at least more instantly than an opposing forces, you build friendships, I think, quicker, or people don't see that you have an ulterior motive. Once it's on the up and up, I think people are quite given in that, but I think everyone's on the defense at first, because even we have run into some trying to what's your angle? What do you want? No, we just want to get with you. We just want to do this or that. And they can't figure that out because it doesn't make sense. I don't know you. You're wanting to spend time with me. What's going on here? Something's not quite right here. But then after they kind of get past that point, then you recognize, because we're talking about believers. It's not unbelievers that we've been befriending. But once they get past that point, you can kind of see the relief. But then you also see a little bit of the heartbreak that they don't, in fact, have those relationships. That There's sometimes with men and Elaine, this is the first time they're making a relationship like that, and they've been closed off. And I think there's a decompression when you've been in pain for a long time. It's hard when that day comes where that pain can be over just to let it go. I have seen people, they kind of hang on to it, and they want to kind of dream up some new things because that's what they've been conditioned to for the last 20 years of their life.
And isn't that a tragedy?
Yeah. But that's because what's going on in here echoing. Yeah.
But it's the thing that to me that makes it so tragic is you're talking about believers. You're talking about people who have heard love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
They've heard, so much scripture and teaching about the significance and the importance of love. And even if they've only ever heard the New Testament, at some point or another, the lesson is always boils down to relationship and love.
Yeah.
So to live a life where you're so mistrusting because your experience has been something separate from what God intended.
Yeah.
As believers, my mind is trying to imagine being a part of a church and being surrounded by other Christians and not believing that I can trust.
But the thing is, think about it this way, though, because we live in a world where someone wants more from me than what I want to give them. Whether that's going to work or whatever it is. I mean, work, you're in conflict automatically. If I take a job, you want this much work for this much pay. I want this much pay for this much work. Right. So we've already got a conflict. Actually, personally, I'm fine with the fair deal. But typically when you go to work, I would say, whether they know it or not, most employers are certainly trying to get more out of you than what they pay for. For sure. So wherever you go, and then you go from work and you go to buy a car. Well, he's about to screw you over if you're not careful.
Oh, absolutely.
You better look up. So you're neck deep in a world that is taking more from you than what you want to give it. And then one day out of the week, you're going to walk in and everything's just going to be hunky dory. I think we have to deal with the actually of human nature, because for me, it is a bit understandable. It's sad, to your point. It's very, very sad. And it's unfortunate, but that's where relationships have to be established. So just what you were talking about, this terumah really is indicating a marriage of sorts here, that the bond between Israel and God through this article of clothing really is incredible. And so and I do agree with you so much, the church should be that place where people are coming together that way, but for whatever reasons, it's not really happening that way. And so one of our points is to reach out to people outside of a Sunday morning or Shabbat morning at synagogue and say, let's get together, let's spend time together. But when we started doing that, I have to say, to me, the whole atmosphere of our house started changing. Of course, my wife was happy because now she's making friends and she used to entertain, and that's what she enjoys doing. She enjoys being around people. Learning about people, learning what they're going through. I've got a number of them now that, attend our Torah study. And so we get real personal and involved on that, to the confession of sins when the occasion calls for it, but there's a trust in there. And the only way that's going to happen is people have to come together on a personal level. I don't, even if it's synagogue, a person on a stage talking at me it's not the same. I mean, the liturgical, I love the liturgy at synagogue. I like doing the bracha, the blessings, the prayers. I do feel the presence of the Lord in that. And I got to say, that's primarily, if I were to be honest, well, I was going to say the main reason I go is for the presence of the Lord. I go to church for the presence of the Lord. I go to synagogue because I love the liturgy. It feels like home to me. It feels like just a good place to be. But so you go there for different reasons. But as far as getting through everyday life, the synagogue empties out after Saturday. The church empties out after Sunday. That community is no longer there. So you don't have the strength or the resource of people in that context unless outside of those moments. I mean, we studied last week Mishpatim, when people get together, there's a rule system, there's a structure system, but the point is it was people together. And then it gave rules. Hey, if you don't abide by these rules, you ain't people coming together anymore. You're on the outside, sometimes to the point of death. But the thing was, if you look at that, the importance of a community or a body of believers and how important that was, that's not liturgical and that's not worship on Sunday morning. That's people coming together, because one of the things I also learned is people don't know how to come together now. Doing something in the Lord, it's like, so I heard one guy, well, we're going to watch a Super Bowl in the name of the Lord. No, if you're watching the Super Bowl, it's not in the name of the Lord. It's in the name of the NFL. You're watching the Super Bowl. That's whose name it's in. But coming together and trying to do something and doing it in the name of the Lord, I realize people in general do not have social skills. We did one where it's just kind of a house party, everyone come over, and it was awkward. My wife's working the room, I'm working the room, but it was a learning. And I realized, well, that was after people had been isolated by COVID. But in even that, was that a year and a half, the communication skills has went down. Some of them, pretty sure, is because of social media even before that. Right. And I realized this isn't the 60s and 70s. People don't get together and do socials in their home. And so I'm like, we're going to start doing that. We don't know how to talk to one another. Coming together in the Lord, it's a lost art. We have to learn how do we come? Like, so for me, I have Jewish law that says in any grouping of people, get Torah in there. So if I have people in my house, Torah is going to come up. And I got to say, it's a pretty good launch board for the rest of the conversation. People are going to drift. They're going to do all of that. But that's where you find out where people are, what they believe, what they're going through, and that sort of thing is once you start talking about Torah, the concepts of Torah, the weekly lesson of Torah, and starting the conversation there. But like I said, it's pretty interesting when you bring people together now.
Yes. There's so many dysfunctions in American society, period. That just makes it difficult for us to communicate with each other. That the generational communication issues. We have our younger generation that their biggest communication is, this thing, the phone. They're more comfortable with texting than they are with speaking to each other. If you call someone from Gen Z on their phone, they get irritated. They're like, you could have texted me, bro.
I text my son.
Right.
So our primary mode of conversation is through texting.
Exactly.
But he does stop by, though, once in a while. So he'll stop by for the FaceTime as well. But no, you're right. The way that we've learned how to communicate effectively and more efficiently has kind of destroyed our souls.
Right.
It's because we're not technology. We're living, breathing souls that require. But again, every time we remove something scriptural out of our lives, every single time, it's costing us. It's us that we're killing. It's us that's dying. The gold is no longer protecting the acacia wood. The bugs have finally gotten to it. It's decaying now. And the thing about Yeshua is you will not suffer your Holy One to see decay. Mm-hmm. He's talking about the Father's promise to him, you will not let your Holy One see decay. And that's who we're supposed to have within us to keep decay from happening. So if decay is happening, something's gone that should be there. And in this case, I think he represents the Holy of the Holies. That's not there. And so you were going to say?
I was going to say the thing about, Yeshua, when when Jesus was here in the earth, one of the things that was common was he would be found in places where everybody else didn't want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he would be found relating to people, having conversations, talking to them about the things that was challenging them in their lives, and having really transparent conversations. You know, one of the most famous ones, of course, is a conversation with the woman at the well.
Yeah.
Nothing was off limits for him to discuss with people. And that, at the end of the day, that's the model. Yeah. You know, for Christians, the whole idea of the word Christian is Christ-like, someone who is a follower of the way. They were called Christians by the world. That wasn't even their term for themselves. They called themselves followers of the way. They were believers, and the world looked at them and said, they're acting like Christ. We'll call them Christians, you know. So for us to have gone from a place where we used to behave so much like our Savior that we were easily identifiable to now not even comfortable talking to each other, you know, let alone going and finding somebody intentionally that we would normally not want to be around, that the world is ready to discard of, and to find those people and extend to them love and grace and peace and the joy that you have. We've come a long way.
But see, that goes all the way back to where we started about the gifts being used to build the K lot, because there's something that unites people about doing a work together, a common goal. And so if they're not able to use their gifts in the building of the K lot or of the church, then everyone's going their own way. They're going to fulfill themselves somehow. So if they're not fulfilling this within, they're going to reach out for something else, you know, usually something not so good. But I mean, people can get addicted to weightlifting, playing golf. I mean, there's gaming, there's things that aren't necessarily one of the darker sins, but still when it's an addiction's developed, it's just as bad as far as destroying your life. But if the gifts were being celebrated and used to build this house, and people are bringing their gifts to use, and not bring your gift and I will lord over your gift and tell you how you can use it, but find, and I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with it. I understand there has to be order, there has to be structure, there has to be wisdom at the top, because when you start bringing everybody in, you're going to need wisdom at the top. Amen. But finding out who the people are and what the people are about, how they're feeling called and led to serve the Lord in their abilities, I think you have a much healthier, and honestly, I think a lot of the problems at that point take care of themselves. I think when things start lining up, then the rest of the issues aren't as prevalent. Absolutely, because once people are in an environment that is valuable to them, they protect it. Yeah. They pay attention. Yeah. They want it to continue to perpetuate and grow. So, and once people are invested in it at that level, a lot of those other problems, I mean, because they're going to be worshiping, occur, let alone sustain. They're going to be worshiping and doing liturgy at a place that they built. You can't really say they created it, because it didn't come out of their hearts and minds for the structure, but ultimately from nothing to something is in the hands of the people. The creative spark behind it was from the Lord. And then we have this Moshe as our leader who brings down, this is the direction that we're doing. But again, Moshe can't fulfill every part, so he's got to bring people in. And I don't know if he, as far as even hammering the goat, I don't think he's looking over and say, okay, now knock it a little bit here, knock it a little bit there. Right. When you bring someone in to do something, you kind of have to let that go a little bit, and you just have to trust God that the community is going to stay together. Because I've seen there are people that go from place to place, gather people unto themselves and that sort of thing.